I was diagnosed the day after my 24th birthday, and as with most of these situations, unfortunately, it came as a complete out of the blue shock.
Opening Minds, Opening Doors with EACT, the Inspirational Education Podcast.
I'm Michelle Livesey and I'm a journalist with Bauer Media, which has radio stations across the country, from Magic to Absolute, Kiss, the Greatest Hits Network and the Hits Network as well. In this episode of Opening Minds, Opening Doors, we're looking at childhood cancer awareness, and we're taking on a really emotional journey from the moment that someone's told those words, "you have cancer," to the help and support that's then available to them on that journey. Joining me is Clio Brown, who was diagnosed with cancer at a young age. And we've got Abby Derr, who's from the Young Lives versus Cancer charity. First of all, I guess starting with you, Abby, tell me a bit about the charity and the work you do.
Sure. So Young Lives versus Cancer is a national charity. We are based in primary treatment centers, and it's a team of social workers and navigators, I should say, who help support the families as they're going through cancer treatment for their child or young person. We work with ages 0 to 24, just walking alongside them as they're navigating the experience, looking at all of the non-medical practical needs as they arise. As many families would probably say, you can't really prepare for something like that, so we are there to help guide them and answer any questions, offer guidance around all the practical needs as they arise, and just see what we can do to try and help. But we also advocate for the families as well, and I'm sure we'll get into that at some point later.
Okay, and Clio, obviously it's something that you experienced. Tell us a bit about your journey, I guess, first of all.
So I was diagnosed the day after my 24th birthday, and as with most of these situations, unfortunately, it came as a complete out of the blue shock. So everything for me at the time was going pretty perfectly in my life, in the way that I had just bought a house, I'd got this incredible new job, and I don't have any family history of cancer at all. And when I went to the doctor and felt the lump, nobody was concerned, but I was very lucky. The doctors and the NHS were incredible, and they kept referring me for to see specialists and for scans. And then I can remember the moment where I hadn't been told that I had cancer, but I knew that I did, because I was in the scanning room on my own, and at this point I hadn't told anybody anything. So I hadn't told my parents, I hadn't told my family, and I was lying there and they were scanning, and there was one person in the room, and it felt like I closed my eyes and I opened my eyes and there was five different professionals in the room, and at that point nobody needed to say anything, really. It was starkly obvious what the situation was. And I went straight back to work after that scan, and that is the point where I did tell the people that I work with about it, just because, like I said, I knew in my heart of hearts that I was going to have to share that, because I knew, really, even though they can't tell you at that point. And then I was flying home to Ireland the next day to see my family anyway, and I told them about it, but again, like, very downplayed it, because I try and be quite a stoic person, and didn't really go into that much detail. I said, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about, but I've got a follow-up appointment when I get back. And then when I flew back in, I can also remember being at the hospital, and I arrived and this man was leaving and gave me his parking ticket, so I didn't have to pay for parking. And it's so silly, but I remember at the time going, oh, this is a really good sign. I feel like it's going to be a really good appointment. And I went in, and when I was told you have cancer, I didn't cry, or I was probably in shock realistically, but I can just remember looking up to the doctor and just saying, well, what are we doing about it? And then after that, everything happened incredibly quickly. So that appointment was in 5 days of the scan. And then I had my first surgery 4 days after that. and then another 2 surgeries following that, 6 months of chemo, and 47 sessions of radio. And then after finishing that, it's then a continued 10 years of treatment. So it was 5 years of 3 different types of treatment, and then gradually reducing it. So as of February, I'm only on 1 type of treatment, which feels like quite an achievement. But I guess, again, just kind of navigating it as a young person was very, very difficult. So again, I can remember I got my diagnosis on a Thursday, and because, like I said, it had been my birthday on the Tuesday, I had this big night out planned in London on the Saturday. And I was like, do you know what? Let's do it. So me and all my friends went out in London. We went out for afternoon tea, had cocktails, and it was just an incredible evening, because although it was very emotional, and we were all crying at different points in the night, it is a night that I look back on with such fondness, really, which sounds absolutely bizarre, because it just made me feel like they were my family. You know, my friends are my family that I choose. And I guess going through what you're going through, you need to have that support in whatever kind of capacity that is, through friends, through family, through the charity, however you can get it. Because, like I said, it is a situation where there is no right or wrong way to navigate through it. But I can only always say that the better way to do it is by relying on people and letting people help you.
How did the Clio on the outside compare to the Clio on the inside? What was going on inside your head to the front that you were putting on with other people?
It's a very hard thing to describe, I guess, because for me, my friends and my family, they absolutely are my heroes, particularly my parents and my sisters. They put their whole lives on hold for me. You know, my parents essentially moved over from Ireland to help take care of me. My sister just went to her job and straight away said, well, I need every Thursday off to take Clio to chemo. And, you know, that kind of support there through them. And I guess I just felt like I had to be strong for other people, because they were already giving up so much for me. You know, so again, like I very rarely cried. I even had like, I would drive to chemo, say, because I just didn't even want to put anybody else out, and again gave me kind of a sense of control. And then, as you said, with the kind of outside persona and the inside persona, then it became even more difficult when I started to lose my hair, you know, my eyebrows, my nails, like my eyelashes, quite literally everything. And then obviously you're also like bloating massively from all of the different drugs that you're taking. Your skin breaks out. So you just feel like the way you look on the outside and the way your physical body is on the inside, and then your mental capacity, they're all almost in, I don't know, like arguing against each other. So it's trying to make sure that your mental voice is the loudest voice, that, you know, yes, your body might be struggling through chemo, or it might be struggling because of radio or because of the cancer, or it might be, you know, you don't look the way you feel, but actually it is about that voice inside in you saying that you can fight this. And it's about following that voice as opposed to how you present on the outside.
I suppose the impact as well, when people hear those words, you have cancer. Again, going back to young people, you talked about you just turned 24, you had this big night out plan with the girls. You know, it's all about getting ready, it's all about looking your best, going for cocktails. Psychologically, you talk then about your body's change and you losing your hair. How much of an impact did that have, and were you prepared for that?
I categorically was not prepared for it, because again, I think that when you get told that you have cancer, your mind goes straight into survival mode. So everything else that's happening, bar the cancer, just takes a back seat. You know, okay, I lost all of my hair, but that in one respect just feels like, well, that's okay. You know, if chemo's doing its job and it's killing the cancer, I will happily lose my hair. You know, and I've always said that if I got a call from the doctors now saying that you can take another type of chemo that'll make it less likely, I would do it in a minute. I would lose my hair in a minute, again, to just improve your chances. But I guess it does come up with very, very different side effects being a young person, because you're just focusing on things that, quite frankly, you just shouldn't be. If the world was fair, I shouldn't be thinking about all of these things. I should be thinking about going out with the girls, and you know.
We're talking about obviously the physical impact, and also I guess the things that, when you say cancer, you expect to come with it, the treatment, the side effects. But going back to you, Abby, there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there?
Yeah, I think especially for young people, it's such a pivotal point in their lives where you're just trying to navigate this independence that you're working towards. You're looking at, if you're in education, you know, how is that going to work? If you've just finished education, you know, you might be looking at employment, or you might have plans for like a gap year, or just all these plans that you get thrown overboard because you're trying to now go, okay, how do we get through this, and how long, and how do I prepare, you know, for the side effects? What does that mean? A lot of young people, you know, they deal with the fact that now they're having to kind of rely on their parents again in a way that they had kind of worked towards growing, you know, as you do naturally, towards being a little bit more independent and sort of starting to formulate what your life is going to be. It's relationships. It's, as Clio said, it's the physical aspect of it. You know, I think you're trying to figure out this new body and this new, just how things work, and you know, just anticipating the information that you're given and then waiting for it to actually happen. And that is a big fear that we hear sometimes. Is, you know, it's you're told what the side effects can be, but you're not, you know, an estimate about when it's going to start, and then you sort of wait for it and you wait for it, and then it starts to happen. And it's, you know, it's a lot of things to consider at a time when you don't necessarily. You couldn't have imagined having to, you know. I think you're having conversations around fertility that probably might not have been on your radar at that point in your life, especially if you're someone a little bit younger, where that's definitely not something that was on your radar as a older teen or young 20s.
And you have to process that information so quickly.
Yeah.
So again, I was diagnosed on a Thursday, and before I could start chemo, I had to have, you know, egg retrieval and go through all of that. But at that point, I'd never given fertility a thought. Genuinely, I just assumed that when I wanted children, if I wanted children, I would be able to have them. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, not only do you have cancer and you need to have all these surgeries, but also if you do live through the cancer and you do want children, then you need to be thinking about that now, which it's quite mind-blowing. And as Abby said, like what the charity is absolutely incredible at is helping with all of those other non-medical side effects that come along with it. So if you trust your doctors to kind of get on and get the best for the cancer to increase survival as much as possible, and then the charity comes in and helps with absolutely everything else, which I couldn't thank the charity enough for everything that they've given me and everything that they've provided.
Because how do you process all that? Because, like, you know, we were talking, you're being told, you said it happened so quick, you know, you told
it was
this
within a week.
Then you're having the operations, then your treatment plans and your family are coming over, and you've got all this information to process, and then you've got the other things on top, like you say, the psychological effect, the thinking about fertility. Did you just bury that and just go with it, and did it come back, you know, and you thought about it afterwards? Or
I guess with the fertility, definitely, in the way that since I've obviously post you know, the kind of in-hospital treatments, it has been a matter of processing it. What does that mean? What does that mean for the future? And again, like the charity helping talk you through things like that, because I was very lucky. My family come from a medical background, so they could come to appointments with me and would help me to navigate essentially all the different information and then prioritize essentially where to go, what to do. But a lot of people don't have that luxury really. So it's about prioritizing. But the charity were there for me every step of the way. So they would signpost me which direction to go to for, honestly, quite literally whatever I needed. So my first experience of the charity was I had arrived for chemo 10 minutes early, and you can't go in chemo even 2 minutes early because they're so strict about the seat times and everything. And I just walked past. I was in the Royal Marsden. And I just walked past, and the door was open, and it said Click Sargent, which was the name of the charity at the time. And my mum was like, "Will we just go in and just see what they can provide?" Because it says young people, and we'd never even heard of it. And we just went in, and straight away there's somebody comes out, sits you down, talks you through all of the different things that they provide. You know, I got a welcome check to aid in whatever aspect of your treatment that you're finding difficult money-wise. So again, for me, it was the car parking, because to get it to pay for the car park for 6 months was, I think, maybe like £200, which again, obviously, when you can't work for a minimum of a year, it's a really, really big consideration. So that was, and the charity helped find a grant for me through like a teaching grant, so they could direct me towards that. And then I remember returning back later when my hair had completely fallen out, and I'd shaved my head at that point, and I was feeling quite low about how I looked and about the impact that was having on my mental health and well-being, and then obviously the knock-on effect that has on your physical health. And the charity were then able to direct me towards other charities that would help with that. So again, it's just about, they do everything that they can, but then they also use their network that if they can't help, they'll find somebody who can. There wasn't anything that I could not go to that I wouldn't feel comfortable that they would be signposting me in the right direction.
You know, nobody expects to get cancer, even though we know the figures are quite high. So how would people know about the charity? You know, you came across it because you were early for your chemo appointment and you walked past it, but how do people, is that what you do? Do you position yourselves in hospital so you can target young people that way?
So there should be a team at most every primary treatment center within the UK. And then we receive referrals from the medical team. So the medical team would speak with the families, young people, to see if they'd like to access our support. Families can self-referrals, Clio did, where they come in or stop into the office. You can check us out online. We do offer the registration grant, so sometimes families will go online and see that there's the registration grant, and then that will trigger whether or not they want our support, so we touch base with them. Sometimes working with the other charities, they also then they can refer into us as well. So it's really, there's many different avenues for that, where it's, you know, we just want our reach to get out there. And we're pretty open to, if you want to hear about us, we're there to try and help you out as much or as little, you know, as you'd like us to, as the families would like us to have involvement.
And I think getting the voice out there, because actually my first year back at work after the cancer, and I can remember there was this little boy, and he was being treated actually at the same hospital as I was, and he was starting school, but he was only starting school because his parents wanted him to experience school before his treatment became too much. And I spoke to the parents and I directed them towards the charity, because they couldn't compute essentially what was happening, and they put it down to the charity as to their own mental health and well-being improving because of that. But actually that was also a really lovely success story, because he beat it, and he's in year 6 now.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is gorgeous to see. But I think we quite often think about the cancer affecting the person, but it affects everyone that they are around. So again, it's about how we can support not only that young person in navigating, but also the friends and family around them to support that young person. And if us sharing our stories can even help one person and direct one person towards getting the help that they need from the charity, then I feel like it's going to be,
What sort of psychological impact do you see, Abby, because you see, obviously we mentioned the younger age child, probably from babies to obviously 24. There must be different journeys being told to say about parents who struggle as well. You must see all different stories.
Yeah, I think, it's working with the little ones and providing that support to their carers, whoever they may be. But as Clio mentioned, we support as a family unit. It is very much the focus of the patient, but it's making sure that the other members of the family are getting what they need also. So, if there's a psychology team within the hospital, we make sure to connect and offer that support if the family wish to have it. But we also look at other resources that might be appropriate to help with the emotional impact, if that might not be the option that they want to pursue, or they want something in addition to that. And I think for the young people, it's as we've kind of touched on, it's really just kind of it's working with them a little bit more directly because of the age and just their ability to engage and have those conversations, build that rapport. But then again, offering that support to the family as much as they want us to be involved. And that can really vary. I mean, it just depends on each family's situation. It's so unique, I mean, you're going through this massive thing, and what might impact someone initially in the first 3 months, it might hit somebody 6 months down the road. And so we just sort of walk alongside them, honestly, as things come up, and just address the needs. If they need that psychology support, if it's helpful just to talk to us, we do support by just telephone calls, if that's just something listening. Yeah, just lending an ear, and then if they're in at the hospital, popping down to see them. If they're in long term after a transplant, trying to make sure we're there to be able to check in with them, and just being available as much as we're able, and as much as they want us to be.
And I think with the kind of mental health and well-being impact that it can have moving forward, one of the other incredible things that the charity does is direct you towards other charities for just having fun. Because again, what happens when you're young and you get a diagnosis is, again, you go into survival mode, but actually you're still living and you still have this incredible life in front of you. And just because you are having an internal battle doesn't mean that you can't enjoy everything else that life has to offer. So again, I can remember the Young Lives versus Cancer directed me towards another charity that took me out for the day in London, and we went shopping and we had lunch. And I can remember I came back to chemo and I was just sat there, and I must have been the happiest person sat in chemo. And it was just about accepting that you can still enjoy life, and you can still, despite the diagnosis, you still have, life is for the living, and you can continue to thrive, not just survive. Just because we have that diagnosis doesn't mean that we're not still on that journey of thriving.
It doesn't have to define you as a patient. You can be as whatever you want to be, and then have this unfortunate thing going on as well.
And I think I would always describe it as it's your reaction to it. The amount of times that people say to me, "Oh, but Clio, do you feel like you are who you are now because of the cancer?" And I used to say yes, but then I realised, I properly stopped and thought about what they were asking. I was like, no, I'm not the way I am because of the cancer. The cancer is rubbish. I am the way I am because of my reaction to the cancer, and again, how I have managed that. And like I said, that would be through connecting with other people and relying on other people.
How much of a difference did the charity make to your journey?
I don't think I would have the mental health that I have now without them. Like I said, they just helped in every single aspect. And they were just there on the journey with me, and it just felt like they were as invested in my well-being as as I was and as my family was, and it was almost like having this extra family. And the more people that are involved in your journey, the more that we can have an impact moving forward, and the more that we can ensure that these young people's lives are, like I said, that we can continue to thrive, because that's what I would describe Young Lives versus Cancer as having helped me. They helped me not just survive, but they helped me thrive right the way through it.
And you hear that firsthand, Abby, and the incredible work that your charity does. How hard is it in this time, post-COVID, cost of living crisis, to stay afloat as a charity and carry on supporting people when you know that help's needed so much?
It's really difficult. I think, COVID had an initial really big impact, and then since then the cost of living has increased so much so that new issues are arising that we might not have dealt with as much pre-COVID. And because we are a charity, because we work alongside other charities, we're all feeling that. I think people are just unable to provide that financial support that we then pass on to the families. So it's looking at these new issues that are arising. A major one right now is just travel costs. Families are spending well into the hundreds a month just to get to their appointments, sometimes skipping appointments or their treatment, postponing it a little bit so that until they can get there, because they don't have the funds for it. And so what we do then is look at, okay, what are we able to do? Are there other entities that can help with that, charities that can help with that as well? Right now we're working on the Running on Empty campaign, which I encourage everyone to look at on our website and sign the petition. That's an action that we want. We want others to be supported, but we need the MPs, we need the people who can make these decisions happen to know that this is an issue and it's not going away anytime soon, and it's greatly impacting the lives of people that shouldn't be having to worry about this right now.
The travel had a huge impact on me, I have to say. And, I've had it where people have said to me before, oh, well, can you not just get the bus? And I'm like, okay, you sit in a chemo room for 6 hours being pumped through with drugs and then go and sit on a bus beside somebody who's eating an egg salad sandwich and try not to vomit all over them. It's just not sustainable.
It's not safe too. I mean, you're so vulnerable sorry to cut in.
No.
But you're so vulnerable to infection. You can't just go hop on a train. You can't hop on a bus. You can't, you could take a taxi, but that still costs a lot and not always not always hygienic. I mean, there's just things that I think people don't take into consideration. Like you have to think through these things.
And for me as well, travel gave me a sense of control. So I could not control what the cancer was doing inside my body. That's just something I had to accept. I couldn't control whether the medications are working. I just have to give it a go. But what I could control was driving to chemo. That was one thing that every single week, and when I was doing radiotherapy, every single day. I mean, when going to radiotherapy was like having a full-time job. I mean, actually, to be honest, having cancer is like having a full-time job. You're just there all the time. And I lived an hour away, and if I was getting public transport, it would have taken double that. So I'd have been traveling 4 hours a day and in hospital all day, while also having all of the physical and mental side effects of cancer. It's not sustainable, or as you said, safe.
So hearing the vital, just little things like the travel support, what can people do to support your charity?
I think they can do it. There's no one way that you can support. I mean, I think there's London Marathon, there's baked goods sales at your school, there's raising awareness just to who the charity is and letting people know. It's checking us out online and sharing that with friends, family, others. I think it's hosting events, in any capacity that might just bring people together to have these conversations and just let them know sort of who we are as a charity.
If you do have any any questions, or you know that you want to support the charity but are unsure of how to do that, you can also always get in touch. So I was at an event on Thursday where we were raising awareness and we were raising funds. So again, it was an awards night that was hosted, and then I was there as an ambassador, and there was a representative from the charity there. But we did a silent auction, a raffle, as well as just going around and collecting from people. But it's not just the funds, it is about the awareness, where we need to open up that conversation so that people know, because obviously the incredible things that the charity does, that's what we want people to be accessing. We want them to be accessing the help that they need and that will impact their lives moving forward after being given this horrible diagnosis.
Well, thank you so much for that emotional insight to your experience on your journey with cancer, and obviously the support available to people. If anyone needs any more information on that episode or any of our other Opening Minds, Opening Doors episodes, you can go to the website openingminds.openingdoors.co.uk or just search Opening Minds, Opening Doors on socials.